Kendra Burton. In this tape, we'll be doing one complete oil painting step by step from start to finish. Remember, one of the best ways to learn by video is to watch the tape entirely through first, taking notes as needed, and then go through a second time as you do your painting, stopping to review as often as you like. Also, if you adjust the color on your TV set to create natural flesh tones, you should be able to get accurate color reproductions to help in mixing your paint colors. Today, we are doing a painting called Teton in the Pines. Here we have the majestic Grand Tetons set off by a glowing sky. The rugged mountains capture the light of the sun as well as the shadowy snow. The base of the mountains is softened by a hazy mist, while the background trees beyond the meadow create distance. There are pines casting shadows on the road and smaller trees. And finally, the painting is finished off by sprinkles of colorful wildflowers. Now, the first thing we need to do before we start painting is to make sure you have the supplies you need. And once you have the necessary supplies, you can now prepare your canvas layout. I've pre-sketched the layout here with a light wash of thinner with a touch of ultramarine blue. This is mainly so that you can see it better on your set, and you may simply use a pencil to sketch it on at home if you'd like. Remember, as you're sketching, this is a good time to pause the tape and just keep in mind proportionately where some of these things go. As you're sketching in, say, the horizon line here, maybe a third of the way up, if you can divide it into proportions or sections like halfway across or so forth, then you should be able to accurately sketch your canvas layout. Then after you've completed your canvas layout, you can now prepare your palette colors. First of all, we have titanium white. Now, you'll want to have a whole bunch of this color because we use quite a bit of it in nearly every painting. And this particular white was a little bit stiff, so I took some linseed oil and mixed that in to make that a little bit more creamy. The next color that we're squirting out is called cadmium yellow medium. And it is important to get the one called cadmium yellow medium because there are light and deep tones of this color. Then the next one is called cadmium orange. The next color on our palette we have is cadmium red medium. Here again, you want to get the medium tone, not the light or the dark or deep. The next color, we need quite a bit of this, is called burnt sienna. Here you want to make sure you get a color called burnt sienna because they do have one called raw, and that's not quite as red. After that, we have a very dark brown called burnt umber, and then on into ultramarine blue. The next color we have is cerulean blue. This is kind of a turquoise. Now, I've pre-mixed the first three colors, and I'll tell you what goes into them. And as you're mixing, this might be a good time to keep a notebook in hand so that you can write down these color combinations and later go back into them as you're mixing your own for your painting. Okay, we'll start with the first mixture, which is kind of a dark blue-gray. And in this combination, we put both of these blues, ultramarine and cerulean blue. And then we want to have white. In fact, you may want to start with white since it's fairly a light color. White, two blues, and a little bit of burnt sienna. In fact, quite a bit of burnt sienna in this color to create kind of a blue-gray look. Then the next one we do is our lighter blue sky, and in this one we will have, here again, the two blues with white, but to gray this down we'll grab just a touch of our cadmium red medium. Then the last color I've pre-mixed here is a fairly easy combination. It's simply titanium white with just a little touch of cadmium yellow medium. And when I say just a little touch, I'm going to show you. I'm not sure if you can see this, but up against this color, it's just the very, very tiniest little touch of color, because if you add too much, it will get too yellow on you. Okay, now we're going to paint the sky. We're starting with the darker blue-gray color, and I'm going to grab a large Bristle Bright number 12, dipping in, and you may have to put a little bit of your medium, which you may want to use half and half, linseed and thinner as your medium or your oil to give a little texture or thin down your pan a little bit. I'm taking the dark blue sky and I'm going to start at the very top of my canvas, going in a little bit of an arc shape. So here's where this dark blue sky comes, and it really is quite a dark blue-gray. But it doesn't really matter if it's that dark, because if you want to look even at the finished painting, you can see that the dark actually kind of creates almost a secure sky. Now, we don't go over too far at this side with this, because pretty soon we'll come in with some dark green, and so we don't need to cover anything that we're going to do our other colors over right now. Let's kind of extend this maybe a little bit past this largest tree, like so. Okay, kind of an arch shape. And the next color we're going to go into is the lighter blue sky. Now, you may want to just clean your brush in thinner if you feel like you've got so much paint on it. Otherwise, you can just take a paper towel and wipe it out. Now I'm going into the lighter blue sky color, and this comes next. Now, this can come just above the mountain, about like so, because right next to the mountain, to create that kind of glowing sky, we've got that off-white combination. Okay, so we're going to come kind of perpendicular, that means straight onto the canvas, scrub, scrub, scrub in here. Come right up to the darker color. At first, just kind of laying this in, and then we'll scrub to blend it together in just a minute. Back down the palette, I'm still using this lighter blue sky color. Got a pretty large brush here. And so you only have to put a couple of little spots of sky showing through on this left-hand side. Okay, now to create kind of a blend, you still come in straight onto the canvas and do kind of circular motion here. Now, after you do that circular motion back and forth a little bit, and that should create a pretty good blend. A little bit of a blend in here. Now, you may want to clean your brush after this, because we're going to go into the lighter off-white sky, and I'm cleaning it in just this little jar of cleaner, and in the bottom it's got a little spring in there so that some of the paint can settle to the bottom. So you do want to clean out your brush pretty well before you go into this off-white, otherwise you're going to get kind of a little green. Now we're into the off-white color on our palette, dipping in to a little bit of our medium. In fact, I'm going to move the medium cups up here so that you can see as I'm dipping in, I've got some of my linseed mixture. I wonder if you can see that if I sit that right about there. In here I do have a little bit of medium, so as I need to dip in there and thin out my paint a little bit, I can do so. Okay, now we're going to do this light off-white right up against the mountain. And you do want to kind of save that line of the mountain, because the Tetons are actually fairly distinct in shape, and this is taken from an actual picture as far as the contour of the top of these mountains, and so it is important to get a good shape in here. I'm trying to create a fairly distinct line here. I know as I teach classes, a lot of times I'll have people that say, oh, I went there and it was so beautiful. These mountains are so big and majestic, and we have been lucky enough to travel there quite a few times, and every time I go, it seems like I still enjoy it a lot. Okay, so we're working. Now here again, you don't want to come right up into your blue yet. You just want to lay it up to it. This brush is still our Bristle Bright number 12. We'll just come right up to that blue. Kind of maybe need to use the corner edge of it as you're coming next to the mountain so that you can get right in there. Okay, there's our off-white. It's always fun to paint a place, a real place. And several people know of the Tetons. Okay, now I'm blending. I'm coming straight in here again, kind of circular. This is what's going to create that nice glowing sky. This really sets off these mountains. Okay, here again we are using the It's a Bristle Bright number 12, which means it's kind of flat and square at the top. Okay, now I'm just going to kind of blend it softly with this brush, and then I'm going to go into another brush to get even a more smooth blend before we go on to our mountain. Maybe even blending a little bit up into the darker colors. Okay, now I'm going to switch brushes, and if you want to look at your palette for just a second, this is a very, very soft rabbit hair blender. It's different than the other bristles and sables that we're using. It's really, really soft, made out of rabbit hair, and it gives you those most wonderful blended sky. Now I'm coming in here, and I'm really not pushing very hard. I'm just kind of blending just the very tips of that brush right into the paint here. Very soft. Okay, now sometimes you get these little stragglers. I can see a few little stragglers in here. Sometimes you can just pick them up with your brush. Sometimes if it's too hard and that one's not coming, you can switch over to a palette knife and just pull that off like that. Okay, now we're going to switch brushes. Oh, I'll tell you what, I'm going to have you, we'll go into the switch brushes to the Sable Bright number 12. Now this one, of course, is made out of sable, and it's flat and it's square on the end, but it's a little bit different sizing than the bristle is. Now I'm going to go into this darker blue gray, and then I'm just going to edge the top of the mountain in. Nice top edge of this. Really crisp, because I'm simply edging in the top shape of it. Then I'm going to go back to my huge Bristle Bright and block in the rest of it. Couple little bump ups in there. Do try to create a real rugged look. I know sometimes when students are painting this, they'll come along and they have a peak and another little peak, and they forget maybe sometimes to create a real jagged look. Now there's a little peak right in here that pokes right out on the real exact pyramid shape on the top. It really kind of has different slopes on each side of this mountain. Okay. Okay, edge it right along. The detail as far as the top of these mountains, especially since it is a ridge. The top of that, watch how fast this next part goes. We're going to switch brushes back to our Bristle Bright and pile this whole thing in like this. And this goes quickly when we... It's interesting. You may say, well, gee, now let's see, if this is a number 12 and the other one's a number 10, an interesting piece of information differently, so that the bristles are going to appear to be bigger just because of the way that they measure the sizing on them. Okay. Rubbing that right in there. We are doing so well. This is just, I love to paint mountains. Mountains are one of my favorite things, and especially these particular ones. Okay, really scrub that in. Okay, you can come right down to where your meadow goes. Now we do kind of want to leave a little space for these, the lodgepole kind of big pines that go over on the left. The trunks of those big trees. So I'm going to leave spaces every place you see the trunks. I come right down to this little hill. This is where we're going to have some grass and some other pines. Like I say, this is just a block-in, so you don't really have to worry about it too much, because we're going to come back over there and you do some palette knife texturing, which is really fun to do. And really effective. Palette knife can give you a very, very rugged kind of a contour to your mountains. Okay, you want to get in between these trees in here. Now here again, I'm not really going to go very far over to the left-hand side because of those trees and because of all the greenery that goes around those. So I'm basically going to just go over to the largest tree on the left here. You might want to kind of overlap the trunks because it's easier to come back and widen out your dark, but you don't want to get it too wide. Sometimes I have people that don't leave, or sometimes I have people that leave too wide of a space, and then they have to make their trees way, way, way bigger, and it's something maybe that they don't want to do. Now I'll go back to the palette, and I'm going to mix up 2 more colors so that we can start some texture on our mountain. The first one that we're going to do is kind of a beige color. So we're going to take, and this isn't really too hard to mix, we're going to take some white, titanium white, over by our pile of sienna here, and some sienna. Now it's really interesting that you can get with just these 2 colors, this brown and this white, a really, really pretty beige color. And this is going to create a nice sunny side of your mountain. See, maybe just a little bit more sienna. You can judge this for yourself too. Sometimes people like it to be a little bit more vivid or more peachy color. Then I'll mix up 1 more darker mountain color before we go on, and then we'll get back up to our canvas and do our texture on the Tetons. Okay, so there's the beige color. Then for the dark mountain color, I'm going to take the 2 blues with white, sienna, and cad red. So I guess we'll find a place about right in here. Looks good. 2 blues, let's see, cad red and sienna in here with some white. Now this is a fairly dark color, so you don't need quite as much white. I may even still have to add some more colors to this mixture. That looks pretty brown. So if that's too brown, what we need to do is grab some more of our blues. And maybe a little bit more red, because this one we kind of almost want a lavender gray. See, that's pretty blue now, so a little bit more red. Now we're getting a nice lavender, deep kind of a lavender color. A little bit more red. It's really interesting too, as you have different brands or different tubes of paint, sometimes some are stronger than others, and you just may have to experiment a little bit with these to see what kind of results you can get. Now that may look pretty dark, but it's actually kind of a dark lavender gray is what this is. Okay, now we're going to go back to our canvas and cut in some light sides of these mountains. I've loaded up, I don't know if you can see this very well, but I've loaded up the top edge of my palette knife. That makes it the easiest that I can think of. Now, sometimes if you're doing a different angle, you can load up the other side, but generally you go on the edge of your palette knife so that you can control it a little bit better. Now I'm going to start with the major peak of the Tetons here, and I'm just going to gently what we call kind of drag this over. I'm holding the palette knife very, very lightly. I'm letting it just kind of catch the very top fibers of this canvas so that you get little holes coming through, and it's going to create a really nice rugged kind of a mountain in here. The other thing to remember as well is as you're putting this on, try not to go straight down the middle and go light side, dark side kind of a thing. If you can get a real nice uneven crest in here, then that makes it more interesting. So we'll kind of curve this down a little bit, and then we'll bounce over here a little bit more. Here we're still using this light beige color. It's going to be the most vivid at the areas that come up to create the ridges in your mountain. Okay, then we can bring this down. Here again, just kind of dragging. See all those holes that are coming through? Just catching the very top fibers of the canvas. And I need to grab a little bit more paint. And I'm going to show you, too, in case you end up getting too much. Sometimes this is a common thing that happens, is you end up getting too much paint, but don't fear. Oil's a wonderful forgiving medium, and I'll show you how to remedy that, too, if you get to that point. In fact, I'm going to show you as an example. If I came up here and went like this, got too much light, you can simply just kind of take a little bit of that off and then go back into a color, say like your blocking color, which is your darker blue-gray, and just let this kind of sit on here. and create some nice texture and break that up a little bit. So it really doesn't matter if you end up with something that you think is a mistake, because you can generally make it look good. Okay, now we have another little ridge coming in right over here. Can you see that start to take dimension? This is so exciting, I think, when we start doing these mountains, because once you, after you've blocked it in, once you start adding these light highlights, boy, this starts to come alive. Now I'm trying to make it about as accurate as I can as far as the real Tetons go too. Okay, let's pull some of these down here. Maybe we may even cut this across just a little bit with some of this light. Here again, remember just to keep it kind of uneven. I think this is just looking fantastic. Okay, over here, a couple more ridges. We can go 1, 2, 3 up in there. That'll kind of make it more interesting. Break that up a little bit. Maybe extend this one down a little further. We're going to want to invite all of you to go see these places for real. Maybe this will make you excited enough to want to see these. Okay, some more light maybe over on that ridge a little bit. Now you can kind of diminish this as you get toward the bottom, because we're going to create a little bit of a mist, so you don't want that much texture at the bottom of your mountain anyway. Okay, now a couple more ridges with this color, which is kind of our beige mixture. See, we already did that one, so we'll come in this next one over here, bring it about right to this little kind of valley area right in here. Load up as needed. A little bit broader down in here. This is our beige mixture, which was simply the white with just a touch of sienna, and it's such a pretty color. Okay, maybe I'll make this little ridge a little bit bigger. Now over in here, you really don't have to add much detail because you end up with all this other stuff going on. But I'm just going to touch a few little spots just for interest, kind of almost smearing them into the canvas a little bit more, because you don't really need to add much detail over there. Okay, now I'm going to go into the color, if you look back on your palette with me, that's called our darker mountain color. And this will go on, now what's left, see the darker side of the mountain. So we're going to come up to the canvas and then just kind of pull this in the direction that the mountain would go on the shady side. Okay, now if you feel like, you may have to judge this for yourself. If you feel like that's getting a little bit too dark, you may want to just mix a little bit more white in there. And I do feel like that's slightly darker than I want to have that. And don't feel like you've ruined it if you've already applied that. Like I say, you can go over it, and boy, this mountain can be really big and textured and fun and rugged. So it's okay if you've already put this on. Now come back to our canvas. If you already put that on, watch how we can remedy that. We'll just go back over this, lighten it up just a little bit, and we'll also add some lighter highlights a little later so that that will make this be a little lighter as well. A little bit more to lighten that. There we go. Okay. Now, like I say, kind of come in the direction that the dark side goes. Generally, the lighter side's coming this way, and here's the dark side cutting in this way. Lots of texture is just, I think, really, really neat to see on mountains. Okay, a little bit of dark over in here. Like I say, not much detail over on the left because you end up with those other colors in there, but we do put a little bit right in there, diminishing as you get closer to the bottom of those mountains. Okay, slanting in here on the dark side. Then after I put the light and the dark side on, I'm going to do some highlighting. And to do that, I'll be using our off-white and then our lighter blue sky color. The off-white will go on the sunny side, and then the blue sky color will go on the shady side to create kind of a shadowy snow kind of look. Okay, so now we've got that textured in our light and our dark side, so we're going to do our highlights. If you want to go down to the off-white. We'll take some of that color. And this will be a really kind of snowy highlight on it. Oops, I want to make sure I don't get too much. This will come kind of at the ridges, mostly at the top of your mountains, to create a real snowy looking mountain. Going to drag that over. That's an off-white. It adds a lot more dimension, I think, to the painting as well. So you can change the angle of your brush as you're of your palette knife as you're doing this too. Now, that little ridge that pokes out there, push it in a little bit. Off-white, some more. We can just kind of lay on even more than I feel like. A real sunny look to these mountains. Okay, here's some more sun. Like I say, change the angle as needed of your palette knife. Oops, now so you don't want to get too light toward the base of it. Like I say, you just want to kind of keep that a little bit less detail. I kind of picked up some dark right in there. Let's go back, get some more off-white. Drag that across. Really kind of a smooth. There's our 3 little deals up in here. 3 peaks. A little bit of snow on this one. Boy, that is looking really good. Now I'm going to go back over to the color that we used for our sky blue color, and we're going to just kind of cut in a little bit. This is kind of like the highlight we did on the light side, but this is on the dark side. Now this will create kind of a snowy look to it. See how that makes it look kind of like shallow snow? I feel like this is just a little too dark. I'm going to add just a touch more white to this color. You may have to adjust this as you're looking at it at home. You want this color to not be too dark because it's supposed to be kind of a shadow snow color. There we go. Oh, there we go. That is good. This looks really good. Hope it looks as good to you as it does to me. Okay, a little bit of shadow snow up in here. You may want to kind of break some of these up a little bit. In fact, you can almost put a few of those colors in the light side so that you can get some more texture. Okay, so after you've added these snowy areas in, over here you don't want to get too detailed either because we've got those other trees that are coming in here. And like I say, kind of fade into the bottom where we're going to have some mist. And when we do our mist, I'll have you just grab your filbert number 4 and just dip into a little bit of your off-white mixture, and we'll just scrub in. In fact, I'll just have you do your white instead of off-white. This is a little bit more pure, and it'll make the mist look more blue. So we're going to take the filbert bristle number 4 and dip into the white, and then we're just going to scrub in a little bit of a mist down here at the bottom. Straight onto the canvas, circular motion. A bit of white to create that misty look. Oops, a little bit more white. Misty even over in here. It's kind of, sometimes make it a little bit more difficult as you're working around these trees. But you do want to create just a little bit of a mist over in there. That look misty? Okay, then the next little thing I'm going to do, and I'm just going to keep this very same brush, is go back into the color that was the dark blue gray here on my palette, and I'm going to grab some of that. Maybe it needs a little bit of medium. And I'm going to block in some background trees. Now you want to just, for this, you come up to the canvas and just kind of pull up really real vertical strokes so that you can get just kind of an indication of very distant pine trees in here. Now I'm going to use this color, and then I'm also going to use a couple more colors in here to add interest. You may want to put a few of them over here at the left, but like I say, you don't see that too much. Just come right down to the meadow line there. Now see, you can work it straight on, pulling up, or else you can turn to get the chisel edge so that it's really a skinny line too if you'd like. Either way, you can kind of work it back and forth to get what you need here. I have a few distant trees that go right up in there at the right. But you don't need a lot of detail again because we end up doing some other trees over that. Okay, now for interest, we'll just grab just a touch of cerulean blue, which is kind of our turquoise one, and then a little bit of, if we go back to our palette, a little bit of pure cerulean. Now, you don't want this to be too bright on your canvas, but you can take some of this, and as you go back to the canvas, work in a little bit of this just to create some interesting varieties of colors. This is the cerulean. I'm going to do the same thing with the burnt sienna. Okay, pure burnt sienna back on our palette. Maybe a little bit of medium as you need to. Kind of work in some fun colors back in there. Okay, now as soon as you have those, just see, you really don't have to work really hard on those. You just want the impression of some really, really distant trees in there. Now we're going to go back and mix our next color, which is our meadow. And in this one, you use white, cadmium yellow medium, and burnt sienna. So pull this to the side. Okay, so white, cad yellow medium, burnt sienna in this color. This is just kind of a sunny, grassy color, almost like a little wheat field in the fall. It's really kind of a nice honey color almost. Okay, now once we mix that up, we go back up to the canvas, but we're going to take, first of all, our fan brush. This is a bristle fan. You want to make sure you get a bristle fan, not something that's sable or softer, because this will be really nice and stiff. Now we're just going to kind of block this in first, and then we'll do some texture with it in a minute using the same brush. Okay, just kind of go across here. This little meadow area, it really isn't very big. You can kind of drag into the distant trees too to create a little bit more distance and almost a shadowy effect. Now, you may have to judge this for yourself. This kind of appears fairly bright to me, but we're going to go back and add some other texture to it, and so you can judge. Now, I'm just kind of pulling in here to add a little bit of texture. Then I'm going to add kind of a dark highlight and then a light one in here. And to do that, for my dark highlight, I'm going to take this fan brush and dip back into some pure colors. Here we have a little burnt umber. And I can work some of that in now. Just we hope this doesn't get too dark. I'm just going to kind of pull up to give this a real grassy effect back in here. See, it takes the flat meadow and turns it into something that's more three-dimensional, more realistic in here. Okay, so that's some umber I'm pulling up in there. You also can do this same thing. You can pull up or else pull down, as long as you get kind of a little bit of a texture to it. Same thing with some burnt umber. I'm going back to the palette. This is burnt umber. We're going to do the same thing to create a little bit more color in here. I'm pulling down now a little bit and working my way back toward the back of the meadow. And the last thing we'll do before we finish the meadow is we'll top it off with some little off-white highlights. Fan brush again, maybe a little bit of medium. Dip into your off-white. It may pick up a little bit of color, but that's okay. If it does, it'll be light enough. Okay, here's some highlights in our meadow. Now see, that's toning that down, so it's not quite so bright as it was at first. That should be kind of toning that down. There we go. Really kind of a grassy little meadow in there. Okay, then the next thing that we're going to do is mix up our road colors. We're going to have a shady road toward the back of the road, and then a sunny one that comes out here at the bottom of our canvas. Okay, if we'll go to our palette, to get our road colors, we're going to do two different road colors. We're going to do a shady road, which takes, in fact, both of these take the same colors, it's just different combinations. So here's our shady road, burnt umber, burnt sienna, some, we might need a little bit more of that, some white, and then just a little bit of yellow in here. Mix that around. Now you want this to be a fairly dark color, so see, it's not quite as dark as I want it, so I'm going to just add more of the darker colors, a little bit more of both of these browns, This again is the shady road color, so that it's going to be where the trees are casting their shadows across the road. Okay, now that's a good color combination right there. Now we'll move on to same colors, but just a little different combination. 2 browns, touch of yellow, a little bit more white. You want this visibly lighter than the other one, so we may need a little bit more white than that too. So it can create a good contrast between the shadowy road and the sunny road area too. Okay, now after you've got those mixed, we'll go back and grab the brush that's our filbert bristle. Now this has still a little bit of blue. You may want to clean this out just a little bit if you need to. It's not really crucial because it's such dark brown. Okay, now we're going to take our shady road color, again using this filbert bristle number 4, and up to our canvas, we are going to simply divide this road into 2. Make it a curve and block in the darkest part like this. And here you want to kind of create a curve because it makes that look a lot more well-worn. Okay, now into the lighter road color. Lock this in. See, it's not a whole lot different, but enough that it's going to show you a contrast here. Now, after you block this in, we're going to go back and do a little bit of contour, and then we'll do some texture on it. Sometimes when I paint, I know you'll hear a little bit of a bang. We've got a metal easel here, and so sometimes it kind of makes a little bit of noise. Okay, so a shady road and a light road, and then we're going to just go back into the pure burnt umber and kind of contour this at the sides. This is going to make it look like it dips in toward the center. Oops, more pure burnt umber here. And you can just run that clear even into the sunny road area. Here again, just kind of creating that little bit of a contour. And after you've done that, then we get to do some palette knife rock work here on this little road. Maybe just a little bit more contour in there. Okay, now pick up our palette knife and do some texture in the background. Now I'm going to just take some pure burnt umber, put on my knife, and just kind of spread this across in here to give it some texture. I also can use the sunny road color, which is right here on my palette. You don't want to get too light, so sunny road color is about the lightest one that you can add in here for texture. This sunny road mixture is about as light as you want to go. Okay, just kind of lay that on to get some good texture. Maybe just a touch of burnt sienna, and then we'll highlight the lighter part. Burnt sienna, give it a little bit of warmth to there. Okay, now you can also work that burnt sienna right down into the lighter area, giving it texture. Just lay that on. It's okay if you have a lot of texture. Okay, there's some sienna. Now we'll take just a touch of our shady road, just to kind of create a little bit of texture. This may be fairly dark, and you do want to create a lighter contrast. So now I'm going into the meadow mixture. This is the one we used for the meadow. Have a little bit of light in here. And then you'll top this off by some off-white highlights. And see, that really, if you just kind of spread that around there, that really creates a nice contrast. Okay, now the next thing that we're going to mix is our dark green, and we're going to have 4 different versions of green colors on here. We may have to kind of scoot to the edge of our palette here. Okay, we're going to start with ultramarine blue, and you'll need lots of this. In fact, I'm going to take that whole pile of color. I'm going to just squirt out a ton of this, because this is a color that goes all over a whole big area of our painting. So I'm just going to pull that right back over here and use it to mix. Now we'll take some burnt sienna, which is our reddish brown. This is going to look almost black, but we're going to add a little bit more yellow to it to create a real dark green color. See how dark that is? I know it looks almost black. Hope you can see that. Okay. Now I need a little bit lighter green color for some highlighting, so I'm just going to take just a portion of this aside, create a little bit lighter green color, more yellow, more white. Boy, we may need to mix just a little bit more of this color. You just need a ton of this because this goes all over a whole bunch of your canvas. Now, if you need to extend it a little bit, you may want to just take some of your medium, and sometimes that'll help stretch it a little further if you need to. Now, we don't need quite as much of the lighter, or the medium green that I'm mixing, because we don't use quite as much of that since that's kind of a highlight. Okay, then we will take, I'm going to aside and take a little bit more yellow, a little bit more white. This is going to be a very light yellow, yellowish green for some highlighting. This will really create a real sunny area in our grass. Now, the last little thing, I'm going to take some of this dark green, pull it to the side, and this is going to be for some little distant trees. Fan brush. Okay. Now, we're going to take one of our biggest brushes, this number 12. Dip in a little bit of your medium if you need to, and the very darkest color, and we are just going to block in this whole thing. Very dark. It almost looks black as you put this on. Just kind of keep the edges of the grass uneven as they go into the road. Just really scrub that in. Okay, and then we'll work our way over into here. I just want you to do the grass right now because then we're going to cut in our tree trunks, and then we'll come back and do some other pine needles over that in just a minute. Okay, so here we're still using this gigantic brush. Actually, it's not really all that gigantic. I know I've seen some people use ones that are 2 and 3 inches big, but this is about the biggest one I have used. Sometimes, I guess if you want to cover really big areas, you could use a roller. Those go fast. Okay, work right into the bottom of that canvas. Really scrub that in. This will go quickly if you can get that just scrubbed right in. Here again, your grass, work it right up around the tree trunks, but you just kind of want to leave space so you can tell where these are going. Now, so you can put this pretty solid up in here. Ooh, you don't want to lose that. Try to leave a little bit of your sky coming through there. It's easy to lose, but we try to. Now, we come over here. You can actually make those pretty solid in there as far as the green goes. There's just a lot of green in this picture, but I think it's really effective, that light and dark contrast. Okay, now I'm going to go to the tree trunks. I'm going to switch brushes, Sable Flat number 10, and I'm just going to take pure burnt umber here. It looks like I'll need just a little bit more of that. And as you go into this pure burnt umber, you need a little bit of medium, in fact, quite a bit of medium. This you want almost soupy, so it'll go on quickly up the tree trunks. Here's our largest tree. This will give you a nice edge, kind of like it did on your mountain. These sables really do create a nice chisel edge because they're so soft. Okay, now I know this looks pretty dark, but it is in a shady area, and these other ones will show up, of course, a little bit more because they're against some more light over in here. You kind of want to try to make sure that the bottom of your tree is no thinner than the top. Okay, then on into the other trees. Quickly, we'll just run these right up here. This is coming along so well. I'm really excited about this one. Okay, again. Now you may need to thin that out, so we'll go on smoothly, give you a nice edge here. And you keep these a little thinner. You actually have one largest one, and then these other ones at the side here are not quite as big. And like I say, sometimes as you're painting at home, you may let some of these dry in between painting times, so that if you were able to let this dry a little bit, I think it would be easier to get this on. Okay, now after we do that, we're going to take our fan brush and do a bunch of texture. This is to get your pine needles in there. Now here you want this to be quite thin consistency. Whoa. In fact, it just kind of splattered over there. It's really quite thin. And just keep in mind as you're doing it, I'll show you on the palette, just kind of use the corner edge of your brush, and that'll make it more successful. Okay, we're going to start with the top area of our pines. Just remember to change the brush angle, because that's important, so that you don't get too much of an umbrella kind of a shape in here. Leave a few little spaces. Now I know you did a lot of work on that mountain. You hate to always cover up everything that you do that looks so good if it does, but we'll just put these over here a little bit, just kind of breaking it up, maybe a few little stragglers to make it look more natural. Touch, touch, touch over this area. Okay, is that enough? I think that's pretty close. Fairly heavy at the top, so that you can tell it's full enough to create those big shadows across there. Okay, now I'm going to do some highlighting. My medium color, here again we may need some more medium as in oil, so that we can get a thinner consistency. Now I'm going to just kind of pick where my light and dark separates. Now it basically will go wherever the light and dark separates on your road. So kind of right in here we're going to separate that, and over in here, like so. Now that's just to give you a guideline. I know that's not very noticeable, but once you do some highlighting, you'll be able to tell that. Okay, now I'm just going to go in here and just add some little bit of texture. This is all you have to do to add texture. Just kind of push around. Also push up in your middle. Watch this become grass. See how that becomes grass? Okay, a little bit more texture in here. Okay, now we'll go into the lighter. Oh, let's texture even on into the sunny area just a little bit to create contrast. Now I'm going to do the lightest one, and watch how this just brings the sun into this. A little bit more medium if you need to. Okay, we'll just touch this on and see how that just brings that sun. It just creates such a beautiful contrast in there. Still using corner edge of the brush, kind of touch it in. You don't want to push too hard, just kind of touch, touch, touch. And also, don't kill your darks. You really don't. You want to leave some areas that are still fairly dark in here. If you can use the corner edge of your brush, that'll be the best solution in there. There we go. Now move over into this side again, the lighter areas. Now I'm going to do a couple of feature pines over on the left-hand side, back into the dark now, and just quickly we just put in a few of these in here. Touch, 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 and extend out to the side. You can bring some of these branches up, some down a little bit. Take it maybe a little bit above the height of the mountain. Okay, a few more little trees over at the side. A couple more little trees in there. We are almost done. Okay, a couple of little trees in here. See how quickly those go with the fan brush, because it seems to be just the right kind of a brush to get that kind of texture. Put a few over in here. Okay, now the last little thing, a couple little things. We'll do a little bit of highlight on the tree. Grab just your sable. See how quickly you can add just a little highlight in there. Then we're going to just touch in a couple little wildflowers, and that will be the last finishing steps to this painting. Now to do this, grab, I think the most colorful part of it is the little pink one. So I'm going to do this. And I may let you just put other little flowers in as you like, and as maybe you've seen up in the mountains. Now, a little bit of pink, this is going to add a lot of color to this. Make sure you take it so that it contrasts with the dark beyond, because that's where you'll get the best look here. Okay, so it's cadmium red medium with a little bit of light. You also could use other different combinations of pinks if you'd like. Now this is kind of wet. Sometimes the students like to let it dry so they can get this to stay on there more. Usually if you'll slant your brush, you can get it to stay on a little bit better, like I'm doing here. Remember to do it over the darker areas. That way it shows up better. A few more little flowers over in here. You can do a couple of little, you may need a little bit more white to kind of highlight those. You want to create kind of a light pink in here. Okay, now a few little maybe orange ones, and we'll be done. So we'll grab some cadmium orange, little medium. These you can make like these little five-pointed ones, these little wild roses or something here that's going to look really pretty and add some fun color to your painting. Top it off, detail brush, a little touch of yellow. And we are almost done. There. Doesn't that just make you want to take a breath of that cool mountain air with the scent of fresh pines and walk down the road to the sunny meadow where you could rest and gaze at the beautiful, majestic Grand Tetons? I hope you've enjoyed this painting and that it has helped you discover an exciting and successful approach to painting mountains and pines. You may also like to try other paint by video projects, including Golden Quaking Aspen, the Sunset Seascape, Country Field and Barn, and the Misty Green Forest. Remember, you really can do it, and the rewards are endless. Thanks for having me with you. This is Kendra Burton. Bye.